If you're looking to shoot a great vlog, the Canon G7X Mark II is the camera for you. Affiliate link below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is the Mundane Matt channel, and sex robots. They've been the talk of the town recently. A lot of people out there talking about sex robots. And this new article popped up saying lifelike sex robots could present ethical issues. Experts warn, it's a sex robot. I am genuinely curious what kind of ethical issues could stem from a sex robot. We already have sex dolls, and you got real dolls, and no one ever talks about ethical issues with that whatsoever. Maybe moral issues, depending on your religion or your upbringing, but ethical? What's unethical about this? I mean, if they're following like the three rules of robotics, then I think everything should be fine, right? But let's see here. So a new generation of sex robots could provide a valuable service for many, including the elderly and disabled, but experts say they could also create complex ethical problems. Look, if you're helping elderly people get laid, they probably don't need it, to be fair. You put elderly people in a home, right? In homes, oh my God. It is like they're teens again and they're horny. There's so much fucking in old folks' home right now. There's usually like always some kind of like STI outbreak of some such shit. They like to fuck. And if you are a widower and you're there, like you are pretty much like prime grade A beef. So dudes who can outlive their wives and get to those retirement facilities, you getting it. Just putting that out there. Reason to live. Anyway, moving on. In a report published on July 5th, the Foundation for Responsible Robotics, so that sounds friendly, said that Android love dolls with artificial intelligence will bring a revolution in sex and help a large cross-section of society. Sure, there are a lot of people out there that can't get laid. There's over 7 billion people on this fucking planet. You would think that would make sex easier, but no, there's a lot of isolation activity that happens in certain areas, like Japan, where people just aren't fucking. It also warned that the increasingly lifelike robots could create complex issues, both in their use and their effect on society and human behavior. I'm very, very curious to know why. The highly customizable dolls are near human to the touch and can cost anywhere between $5,000 and $15,000. Yeah, they look pretty good actually. The 5,000 ones, you could like the low end, you can tell they're low end, right? But some of the higher ones are just like, yeah, you're like, oh yeah, I could see myself wasting a few Saturday nights with this. Now, what benefits could the robots provide? Here we go. Let's start with the benefits here. AI dolls could act as companions for lonely, disabled, or elderly people and others that would otherwise find it difficult to have intimate relationships, basically anyone on 4chan. The benefits could even be further reaching if the robots are used to aid people undergoing sexual therapy, helping them come to terms with their experiences. Sure, yeah. You know, I mean, I get that. I totally get that. Dr. Amy Van Winsberger, the FRR co-director and assistant professor of ethics and technology at the Technical University of Delft, said, "We are talking about individuals who are not only disabled, but have been traumatized. In some ways, this could be a beneficial instrument, if you will, to help them in their sexual healing process." Yeah, just show them like touch. And it's like, it's not all dangerous. It's in a very contained environment, one that you could express intimacy at your own rate and your how fast you might do it. I get that. I totally get that. And I think that'd be good. I think that's absolutely good. So what are the ethical problems here? Well, it says, despite the positive uses for sex robots, the report also warns of contentious issues that both the public and policymakers should consider. Ooh, this is where it's going to get good. The doctor warns that a balance must be struck between a lack of regulation, so we have all the different uses and personifications of children and women as sexual objects, and over-regulation that could stifle the technology. Okay, so this has everything to do with building child robots for sex for pedophiles. Or I guess you could say, patriarchy, because let's face it here, the people who would probably buy the majority of these would be men seeking women because those are the biggest ones that are bought right now. You know, and I'm not saying that women out there wouldn't spend the money for a male sex doll, or gay men, or even lesbians getting women. I'm not saying that at all. I'm merely pointing out the fact that it's overwhelmingly men who buy these things. So she's warning about the lack of regulation. So then you get to see the people coming out and building the child sex dolls. And that's the problem. I totally get that. I totally understand that. But again, it's one of those things where you have to ask yourself, would you rather have a person who is a pedophile taking out their act on this versus the other? And that is a question. That is a question. I'm leaving that to you. I'm not even going to pose anything past that. That's one that you yourself have to figure out, because it's a very, very tough question to answer. And it's one that would require a lot of questions to be brought up, and your own personal experiences and beliefs might play in differently. Now, the report's authors also highlight that dolls could change societal perceptions of gender and promote the objectification of women. I would argue that is a false concept right there, because if you look at our general marketing, right, and you look at a lot of things involved with that, you could see where right now women are already maybe objectified in marketing. But then again, also, I think some women like to be objectified in marketing. They like the way it looks. They look at that as empowerment. You hear this time and time again in these arguments. There's always both sides. But the side that's for it is usually drowned out by the people that are against it. So if it promotes the objectification of women, I mean, if these sex dolls are there to perform that act, and men are then performing that act with the sex dolls, wouldn't that actually promote the non-objectification of women? Because there would be no reason to seek them out for the purpose of pleasure. There'd be no reason to seek out a partner in that regard, because you've got one at home that is open and available anytime you want it, and you don't have to like do anything else to get it, right? I think that would serve as a greater concern. I mean, look at Japan right now. They have failing birth rates across the board. The government is trying to incentivize them to hook up and have sex and have children and get married. Like, they're trying to boost their population, but a lot of them just aren't doing it. And birth rates across the board are actually dropping down right now as it is. Compared to the 1979 to 1999 population boom that doubled our world population from 3 billion to 6 billion. I mean, here we are nearly 20 years past that, and we've gone up maybe a billion and some change more. So and they're estimating 9 billion by 2050. So the birth rates are dropping as life expectancy increases. So you get a lot of those kind of angles in this as well. So I could argue that this report is pushing a false narrative, one based on probably feminism versus anything else. One highly controversial issue addressed at the dolls may be used to satisfy desires that would otherwise be illegal. And of course, right there, it's referring to the prospect of pedophiles and so on and so forth. But one could also argue that could be reserved for like taking out murder fantasies on this. But then again, it's like, it's your property. So at this point, they're arguing what you can do with your property. But again, I'm leaving that to you to address in your own mind. Report co-author Noel Sharkey, professor of artificial intelligence and robotics at Sheffield University, said, "Some people say, well, it's better that they rape robots than rape real people. That's one of the arguments, but there's other people saying that this would just encourage rapists more." Well, rape is about power, right? Rape is about power. So I don't believe that they would rape the robots. That would not reduce the call for rape. It would help if you are a sexual, like a nymphomaniac, and you have an obscene sexual desire, right? Like in the case of, let's say, I'm just going to say Islam, for example. These would do very well in Islam, because there was a story not long ago about a cab driver, a Muslim cab driver that raped a 10-year-old boy at a pool in Austria. And he did so because it was a sexual emergency. He hadn't been laid in 4 months. And he did that because he didn't want to come across as being weak, I think. His excuse was utter garbage. But that could tie into something like this, where then it's like, oh, well, I haven't had sex in 4 months. Let me go fuck this doll, so then I don't have that urge to go out and rape a little boy at a fucking swimming pool because reasons. So that's an argument for the sex dolls, especially when talking about religion. And a lot of people, you know, if you are in an organized religion, sex is very repressed. And that might come out. So this kind of thing could actually be argued as a way that would keep people from doing that. But when it comes to actual true sociopathic rapists, no, this would not have that impact, because they want the power that comes from the act. They don't want to take it out on an inanimate object that's not going to move. That is unless whoever programs these things adds in a rape mode, a rape fantasy mode, where the AI then starts, you know, trying to struggle to get away, and then the person has to then overcome it, subdue it, and then take out the act. Which I could see that being something that would be developed third party. You could download through a CAD file. Like, I could see that happening. But ultimately, no. If you argue these things out, you know, I would not encourage rapists. Rapists wouldn't buy it. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, more often than not. Sharky is adamant that the growing presence in the AI sex tech in our lives is unavoidable. If I can tell you robots, I can tell you that robots are certainly coming. Well, we can all hope that they come. Because clearly, mutual orgasm, mutual completion is something that everyone seeks. Right? That's going to be actually one of the key factors of these sex robots. If a man having sex with a female sex robot can bring at least to a reasonable enough completion, to orgasm, then they're going to like that thing. But if it's just like a fucking $15,000 fleshlight with a lot of accessories and no self-cleaning oven, then yeah, it's just, after a while, it's not gonna do what they want. So right now, these Realdolls, there's a community of people out there that treat these things as companions, which is what they've talked about as being I guess a use for these sex dolls for people who are elderly or disabled, so on and so forth. But those are already being used, and they're kind of discounting that they already exist. Instead, this study is essentially trying to point out a couple ethical situations that could arise, but ultimately probably won't arise. And again, it's one of those things where, like, you know, I'm leaving that up to you to decide when it comes to the pedophile side of things, what you think will happen or how you think it should be regulated. And then at the end here, it says, he expressed that the lack of regulation around their use is worrying and should be addressed immediately. We need to think about, as a society, what we want to do about it. And this is the issue. Technology being controlled, being contained by a governmental body is probably not going to go over too well. People will find a way to make this stuff happen. People will find a way to make these adaptations, these accessories, these upgrades, these, you know, the third-party files. They're going to find a way to do it. And restricting it then puts it further into the underground, instead of addressing maybe the root or the cause of the problem. And again, that boils down to how we maintain our mental health in this country, or how we treat people with mental health issues in this country. That's going to come into play for quite a bit of this. Ultimately, the sex robot discussion is a very fascinating one, because it does cover a lot of different angles and different areas and different mindsets and different facets of society. And I don't think there's a perfect way to handle everything. But one must ask themselves, is it wrong to dictate to somebody what they can do with their personal property in their home? And that's a question, again, I leave it up to you. This is such a nuanced discussion. I'm not trying to put my opinion out there for anyone to misinterpret or to completely feed off of. I want you to think about this. How would you handle sex robots? Do you want one? Or do you think something like a fleshlight is sufficient enough? If you want it as a companion, what features would you like? If you think it could help you, if you were an elderly person with companionship, or it could help you with any of the things they've talked about here, what do you think would be the best stuff to add to it? Or what do you think the problems with sex robots might be? Let me know in the comments below. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This is the Mundane Matt channel. I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a fantastic day, and peace out.